You know, every single NFL season, there are just hundreds of stories playing out. We see the scores, right? We see the highlights. But underneath all of that are these deeply human journeys, stories of hope, of struggle, and sometimes of just unthinkable tragedy. Today, we're going to look at one team, the 2025 Dallas Cowboys, and the story of two rookie teammates whose lives went in two completely different directions. It's quite a story.
So, to really get what happened, you first have to understand the vibe in Dallas during that 2025 season. And honestly, it was a total mess. The entire year was just defined by a defense that was in an absolute freefall.
And yeah, that freefall, it had a number. A big one. 411.6. That's how many yards the Cowboys defense was giving up per game. To put that in perspective, that was dead last. The worst in the entire NFL. They were getting shredded week in and week out.
And this quote right here, I pulled this from some fan forums. Man, it just perfectly captures how everybody was feeling. It was despair. It was this feeling that the season was already over, and there was just nothing to be optimistic about.
And this is what's really crazy. This wasn't just a slump or a bad stretch. They were number 1 in yards allowed, which is the one list you never want to be number 1 on, second in points allowed, but look at that third bar. This was the second worst defense in the entire history of the Dallas Cowboys, a team that's been around since 1960. We're talking historically bad.
But, okay, even in the middle of that complete defensive meltdown, there was this one little glimmer of hope. One player was starting to get some serious buzz from people who really watched the tape.
And that player was Donovan Iziraku. He was a rookie D-end from Boston College. And in this sea of just terrible news, his development became the one positive thing that a totally beat-down fan base could hang their hat on.
So you might be asking, what was the big deal? Well, the analysts over at Pro Football Focus, these are the guys who grade every single player on every play. They pointed this out. He wasn't actually getting any sacks yet, but he was winning his one-on-one battles 20% of the time he rushed the passer. For a rookie, that's an absolutely elite number. It's a huge sign of what's to come.
And of course, this immediately kicked off a huge debate online. You had one side, the skeptics, saying, look, pressures are nice and all, but they don't count on the scoreboard. You got to finish the play. But then you had the believers firing back, no, you don't get it. Winning your matchup is the foundation. The sacks are going to come. It's that classic argument, you know, process versus results.
But here's the thing. While the fans and the media were all caught up in this debate about Iziraku's stats, a completely different and frankly, a much more important story was unfolding for another rookie on that very same defensive line.
And this is where the story takes a sharp turn. Because as one young player's future was being picked apart and projected, his teammate, another young man with the exact same dream, was, without anyone knowing it, living out his final days. This is the story of Marshawn Kneeland.
To really feel the weight of this, we have to go back to the beginning. Kneeland's road to the NFL, well, it was anything but easy. The guy was an underdog from day one. I mean, just let this sink in. Out of all the top-tier Division I football programs in the entire country, only one, Western Michigan, offered him a scholarship. He wasn't some five-star kid. He had to fight and claw for every bit of recognition he ever got.
And then, right when he was on the verge of making his lifelong dream come true, he was hit with something devastating. His mother, Wendy, passed away just a couple of months before the NFL draft. So he was carrying that enormous grief with him as he stepped into the league.
This timeline it puts everything into such a sharp perspective. You see how fast it all happened. He takes that one scholarship and turns himself into a star at Western Michigan. The Cowboys see that fight in him and draft him high in the second round. Then he has this incredible career highlight, scores his first ever NFL touchdown. And then, just a few days later, he was gone.
The news just came out of nowhere. It was a complete and total shock. On November 6th, the team and the league released statements that Marshawn Kneeland had passed away. He was just 24 years old. And to this day, a cause of death has never been made public.
So when you put these two stories side by side, the story of Donovan Iziraku's pressures and the story of Marshawn Kneeland's life, you're left with this really powerful reminder about what this game we watch is actually all about. And make no mistake, in his short time in the NFL, Kneeland made a real mark. He was known for that relentless motor and his pure strength. He had already earned a key role in that defensive line rotation. And that touchdown, it gave everyone a flash of the kind of player he was becoming. He left an impression on everyone.
And that really brings us full circle, doesn't it? It is so easy to get lost in the stats, to argue online about pressures versus sacks, and to treat these guys like they're just pieces on a chessboard. But the tragic story of Marshawn Kneeland is this gut punch of a reminder that behind every single helmet, there's a person, with a family, with a journey, with a whole story that is so much bigger than football.
So, it kind of leaves us with this question to think about. As fans, as analysts, as people who just love the sport, what is our responsibility to remember the human being inside the uniform? Beyond the fantasy points and the final scores, what do we really owe the players who give so much of themselves for our entertainment?